So we have a very special Learn from People Who Lived It episode tonight. I am beyond excited about this because we are at Foster, Arizona. We've got a room full of people. We've got the woman who started this whole thing with us tonight. We've got a couple of young men who've decided to share their story with us tonight. I believe the word is epic. Tonight's episode's going to be epic, and I'm glad that everybody in this room can be a part of what we're doing here tonight. I am Matthew Blades, the host of Learn from People Who Lived It, and I don't want to waste a lot of time. I want to bring Kim in right now. Kim Vihan started this place, Foster, Arizona. And tonight we are going to jump into this with a couple of goals in mind. Number one, we want to gain a little bit of a better understanding of what happens in the foster care system. We want to know what's going in and around, what is in the way of folks who have to come up through that system, right? I want a better understanding of that. I want our audience to have a better understanding of how they might be able to help us out in this effort. Both volunteer. You know, there's three ways to give: your time, talents, and treasure. You can't always do all three, but if you can give some time, great. If you can give your talent, great. If you can give your money, great. And there'll be some opportunities. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But and then we're going to talk to Zach and Percy, which I'm really looking forward to. But Kim, welcome to Learn from People Who Lived It. Can you tell me why you started this place?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I actually got involved as a foster parent. That was something I always wanted to do, was to actually adopt. And then as I was in the process of figuring out what adoption would look like, I realized, you know what, I can foster. I can actually support families and not just a child. And so that's how I got involved in foster care. And what we had planned on taking in one child turned into two. And when we reached that point, we're like, okay, 5 kids is enough for us. My husband's like, we got to close our beds down. After that point, we actually took in 2 more. So I've adopted a sibling group of 4, and I have 3 birth children. But in that process, I really found myself saying, I can't walk away from this. When you know something's going on, you can't choose to close your eyes to it anymore. I think that becomes something that you have to own. If you choose to walk away when you know that there's pain going on in our world, then you have to be able to say, okay, why am I closing my eyes? Why am I choosing to act like it doesn't exist? And so I found myself driving the car and I said, you know, I have made videos in the church realm, and I know how to tell stories. What if I started telling stories, and what if I could get other beds open? And so this journey of what if, and choosing to say how I could continue to do something to impact other kids that I couldn't take in my home turned into this.
How many people told you were out of your mind?
Everybody.
Really?
I actually remember sitting down with somebody who's really close to me, and I said, hey, I'm going to make a board because I've got to start a nonprofit, because that's the only way that I can get the money in to do what I need to do. Because it didn't start going, oh, I'm going to start a nonprofit. It really started saying, I'm not going to walk away from this. I'm going to figure out how I'm not leaving people behind. And they looked at me and they said, you're crazy. And nonprofits, nothing stays open. I mean, if you make it 3 years, it's a miracle, because nonprofits have the biggest failure rate, just like businesses. I mean, I think it's something like 70% fail or close their doors within 3 years. It's something huge. And I said, no, I'm really going to do this. And so they chose to actually come on our board, and we started this process, and we started telling stories of kids, and we started telling real stories of people involved in foster care, with this idea that we can tear down the stigma that happens with foster care. And I was sitting in a building listening to them talk about foster care, and none of it was personal. And for me, it was really personal. I mean, I have kids that have experienced foster care. And so none of it was personal for them in the room. And I said, how do I change that? So we started doing kid connection events to actually make it so the community was coming in and spending time with kids. So they stopped seeing foster care as something distant from them, and they started seeing that kids in their own backyards are experiencing foster care, and they're normal kids who are going through these crazy challenges in life and painful situations, and that there's a way that the community can do something that's meaningful to make a difference.
So talk to me about what happens. You know, you walk into the front door of Foster, Arizona, and you are set up to do what?
Well, now it's a whole different thing. We actually then opened it up where we work with young adults transitioning out of foster care. And we started saying, what if? That's the question we ask all the time. What if we opened a couple apartments? And we thought that housing was enough. And we learned that it's not. We learned that there's this big gap space that young adults that are transitioning out of foster care have experienced to no fault of their own. And actually a lot of that we as a community have to own, that they have these gap spaces as they're going out and they're trying to step into the world and live their lives. And so that is what, when you come into our office, there's a lot of different things going on. We still have our Kid Connection events. We do about an event every month. We still work on videos. We're getting ready to launch our foster cooperative platform that's really about empowering champions of at-risk kids and youth and giving them the tools and resources to help them succeed. But then you'll also see in our office at any given time, we're working with young adults. They're coming in and doing schoolwork. They're coming in and we're working on figuring out bank stuff that's going on or whatever it is going on in their lives. We're kind of walking with them. And like even tonight, it's one of our community meetings that's really intentional about trying to give them practical life skills because, again, we need to be able to fill that gap. So any of that can be going on.
Well, and we're going to do that in just a little bit. We're going to talk to a couple of the young adults who attend, and then I've got some plans to walk these guys through a series of what I call details. Most of the people who listen to this podcast know that for 27 years I was a radio personality, and I was able to keep that at a pretty high clip for most of my life. And I was only able to stay at a high level because of the details. I paid attention to the details at every step of the way. And that is an acronym for me that I'm going to break down for everybody. But I think that's going to be the thing that I leave behind here tonight is that you guys are going to have a better understanding of what it really means to pay attention to the details so that you can get yourself to the next place. Because similar to people in this room, I don't know that I grew up with a lot of people around me who I looked at and I was like, that guy's crushing it or that girl's crushing it. You know, everybody just kind of seemed to be doing a different version of what we were doing. And I knew when I was 11 or 12 that I wanted something different, something more. And the last time I was here, which was just a couple of weeks ago, we had a great conversation in this room about being a transitional character. And I know that's something that spoke to a lot of the folks in this room, that idea that you're here to shift. It's your job, right? You're the one who's been sent here to move the needle, not just for you, but for your family and for everybody that's going to come behind you. And you can lean into that in a way that's meaningful and impactful. And you can use this place like your family. This is your environment. This is the healthy environment that is set up for you to succeed right here at Foster, Arizona. Right? Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest thing that we really do try to be is a space that's a family. We're not trying to step in the gap space because we know that I think that's some of the things that happen when people get involved in foster care. They think that the past goes away. And that's not the truth. We all have our roots in places that we come from. And it's not replacing where you've come from. What it is we try to create an opportunity for new connections to be made and the space of safety to take place where you know that you really are cared for and that people are able to see the strengths inside of each and every one of the young adults. And I will tell you, I tell the young adults this, and I truly do feel this. They would not be here with us if we didn't see them as special, if we didn't see their potential. And we really do try to make it a space where they feel that they're loved and cared for because we really do love and care for them.
Oh, it's clear as day. When you walk in here, you can kind of see it. Zach, I want to bring you up here just to have a quick conversation with us because I'll tell you, a couple of weeks ago, we were here and I was doing my speech. And a few days after that, I get this message on LinkedIn from Zach and he's thinking, hey, some of what you were saying was like pretty interesting to me. And you know what? I think I'd like to talk about it a little bit more. And so I wanted to invite him on, and you can put those headphones on and pull yourself right up to that microphone and clear your throat and do whatever you need to do. But Zach, welcome to our podcast. How are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah, step into that microphone a little bit closer if you don't mind, or pull it a little bit closer to your mic, or to your mouth rather. When did Foster, Arizona show up for you in your life?
Back in late December of 2019. It's like December 28th, pretty much.
What was leading up to you coming and needing to be, here, wanting to be here?
So up until that point in my life, I had gone through, an immense load of stuff. It started when I was like 4 years old, right? Like my dad had, beaten me to the point where I was in the hospital. And I was actually, the doctors thought I was going to die from the injuries that he gave me. There is a lot of things on top of that. Like when on my 6th birthday, the day that I turned 6 years old, my dad had molested my brother and he went to prison for that. And, my mom, who already had some underlying issues before this entire thing happened, started really acting out against me and, yelling at me. And the fact that I'm pretty much a spitting image of my father, I think that only exacerbated the issue and caused her to, view me as my father. And that's why a lot of the hatred that she took out onto me was done.
Right.
But, I went through foster care. I experienced so many different things in there as well. Like I had one of the group homes I was in, a guy held a knife to my throat because I didn't say grace at the table because I wasn't religious, because apparently that's a thing that people do.
So you're put in a lot of situations where you have to really learn on the fly.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to adapt and adjust.
Yeah. And, all of this stuff, I feel like it would be difficult enough, one, just going through it by itself, but also being, just a kid and not having like the familial support or really any friends or anybody outside of this to help myself through it. I just had to like do it myself and kind of just muddle through it. I never really had anybody there.
Zach and I talked about this on our call, Kim, but, it was that idea that we like to think that our story is really different and unique. But I'm going to bring you in to say, as you've worked with a lot of the kids, how similar are some of those threads?
I think the thread that breaks my heart the most is the similarity of having to do life alone. Mm-hmm. This similarity of believing that they can't count on anyone other than themselves or on other young adults that they find connection with. And this disconnect from adults and their community around them. And that is something that is so deeply woven into so many of the young adults that we work with, and something that we try really hard to change mindset of.
Well, you have to be aware of it. And you and I talked about it. It's like you're running uphill. You just feel like you're running uphill all the time. When somebody says like, oh, you're a foster kid, what does that mean to you? What do you think about when you hear those two words?
For myself, at least, because I've gone through it, it doesn't mean really anything about who they currently are. Just that they've had to go through something that's caused them to be in foster care. Mm-hmm. And there's some people that, I've gone through foster care and it's like they have completely fine relationships with their families. Like it's the reason for them going in there doesn't have anything to do with trauma. So there's no like definitive answer or reason as to why people are behind it or why people have to get into it. But I think that, just recognizing that the same as anybody else, everybody, no matter if they're in foster care, if they're adults, whatever their situation may be, all of us as humans just want to work on improving our situation and doing what is best to help ourselves out and move ourselves forward.
Can I ask you a question? Are you a little nervous right now?
A little bit, yeah.
I'll tell you why I'm so impressed by this. It takes an enormous amount of courage to jump on a microphone and get in front of a group of people, even people that you know, and talk about things that are really personal, man. And so I just honor that so fully because it really is a courageous thing to step forward. And a lot of us can find ourselves in a place where we don't want to come forward with the information. We don't want to talk about it because we're afraid of the way it's going to make our mom look, or we're afraid of the way it's going to make our dad look. Or if I say this, like, what is my family going to think? But at some point in all of your lives, you're going to have to ask the question, what do you think? What matters to me? What do I need? What does my self-care plan look like? Who are the people that I want to put in my environment? Who am I going to lean on when this thing really sucks? Who am I going to go to when this thing's really awesome? At some point in your life, you will have to lock onto that concept fully, not halfway. You can't say I commit if. You got to lock onto it fully. And then when you get grip of that thing, man, you just watch what happens. What are you hoping to get out of Foster Arizona?
Right now, aside from all of the practical help and, things that they've already given me in that vein from, working through what different kinds of insurance are, like healthcare coverage, all that kind of stuff, taxes, budgeting, all that other stuff. The relational space that they've been able to help me with. Because up until this point, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious from what I've explained so far. But I've had a deep-seated sense of, I cannot depend on anybody else. Everybody that has been around me up until this point has not been somebody that's dependable. And so I've had to, do this stuff myself. And so I have had difficulty in just trusting anybody for anything and just, and making friends. Because in my experience, people are always going to leave you. It doesn't matter whether you think that they're not like that, whether you think that they really are your friend and that they're the only person that you can count on. People leave you. That's a lesson that I had believed up until getting into Foster Arizona. But now that I'm here and now that I'm, able to talk with them and that I've been interacting with them for so long and that I've seen that they actually care. Like a lot of people, they don't get paid, like they volunteer here. They don't, get paid to come here, but just because they care so much, and they're volunteering their own time and their own skills and everything in their situation they're doing because they genuinely want to help. That aspect is honestly still somewhat weird for me because I'm just not used to people being so genuine, and, kind without something in return. But I think, just looking at that, I'm like, oh shit, people actually care about me. And I think that's something that I'm glad to have finally realized.
So Kim, I want to ask you, you hear, you hear him share his story, and what are you thinking? What are you hoping for him as you think about what's in Zach's future?
Zach and I have had a lot of conversations, and so I don't think anything I'm going to say is going to surprise him. The first thing I'd say is I'm so proud of him. To see how he came through our doors December of 2017, to see the man that he is continuing to become today is such a joy for me. He went from not having a job, not having a whole lot of value, not just for himself, but for people around him and the perspectives that he had, to now he has two. He has an internship in the field that he's got his degree in. He has another job. He is working on stability in his life, but even more outside of that success, it's the success that I've seen him make personally with relationships, with his willingness to decide that maybe the way that he viewed the world in the past, maybe the way he viewed relationships and people in the past, maybe there's an opportunity to see it differently.
So let me ask you a question. The podcast called Learn from People Who Lived It, and you've lived it. So how could you encourage people in this room to make that jump, to be a little bit more relational?
Well, I think one of the main things that I had to realize is that, I felt like if there was an improvement that I needed to make, or, something that I messed up on, that's okay. Like I'm a perfectionist, so I always feel like I have to be doing everything on point. But with anything, whether it be relationships or any other kind of goal in life, the main thing that matters is that you are making a effort to reach that goal. If you're wanting to, improve yourself personally, if you're wanting to start socializing more, if you're wanting to, find a relationship, it doesn't matter if, the actual steps or whatever is happening right now. What matters is that you're still wanting to pursue that goal and you are actively trying to do that. So I guess just, even if it looks like you're not making progress, just look at what you're trying to do and the behaviors you're doing in trying to do that, and just, I guess, have comfort in that, and just knowing that, you're trying to make an effort, and that's really all that matters.
I really appreciate you coming on our podcast today, man, and sharing your story. Let's give him a round of applause, guys. It's wonderful. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Okay, it makes me want to open up a center right alongside you. So I get why you're doing this, but talk to me. You hear that interview, and he's at clearly he's made some leaps and bounds in his life. And how meaningful is that for you, Kim?
I think the challenges come so often when you're working with young adults and when you're working with trauma. There's so many challenges, and when you see the successes, it makes everything, every moment, every struggle worth it.
That's the truth. Yeah,
and I'll tell you, we get them all the time. It's hearing about our young adults who are starting school. I've got a couple of them that I've had conversations for a long period of time, and they're starting school. It's hearing them be able to find success at work when they're turning over their jobs. It's sometimes the bigger ones, like Zach. We've been in his life long enough where we're getting to see some really big changes. But you can't just celebrate the big changes. You've got to celebrate all the little steps in the journey. And I remember, I know we're going to talk to Percy a second, but there was a moment we were sitting in a room and he was talking about talking to a friend on the phone, and they were talking about the challenges, and Percy said to him, well, you just got to define reality. I'm like, yeah, you do. Because we talk about that all the time. We talk about being able to dream of the preferred future, define reality, and design a path. And for him to take that knowledge that he'd been given and start to give it to his friends, it was a really proud moment, not for me, but a proud moment for him, because I was like, he's starting to not just hear it, but he's starting to believe it.
If Absolutely. I may cut you off there, it was a significant other, first off. And second of all, I told them that if the pain of where they were was greater than the pain that needed to change, then they should stay where they are. But if not, drive forward.
That's right. And I love that about Percy, too. He will always make sure that I'm right on cue.
Every once in a while, I'll
Percy, I get the impression you've had to keep people honest along the way. Is that a truth for you?
Well, when you live in a narcissistic household, that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, that's the truth. So let's find out a little bit about Percy. I'll ask you kind of a similar question to Zach, which is, how did you arrive to Foster, Arizona?
Well, the journey was long and, to be honest, relatively uneventful in terms of challenges, so to speak. There were definitely a lot of them, but they seem inconsequential now. The biggest thing, though, okay, so I did mention the narcissistic household, which is where I grew up. I grew up with 3 of them: my mother, my stepdad, my father. And every time something went wrong, it was always my fault. So things kind of flew out of control from there. And then we get in trouble with the law, of course, and they put me into the foster care system. After several group homes, several attempts at trying to get my life together, it was, I think, January of 2020. Pretty sure it was January of 2020 that I had reached out to Kim with the help of my ILS worker. And I was, in a few months at that time, going to be homeless because I was aging out of the system.
At what age do you age out of the system?
21 is when you do age out of the system. And as you might imagine, I was 20 at the time. And I had just finished high school. I was just barely starting to get a job. But it wasn't easy, even then. Even with a part-time job as it was. There was... Those in and of themselves were the starting challenges, to say nothing of my actual disconnect from people and reality in general.
Well, I mean, which, in your defense, you needed to do to survive, right? Growing up in a narcissistic house, if you're always going to be the person that's to blame, you guys might agree with me, right? You might come up with some survival techniques to help you feel like it's okay where you are, and that's clearly what you had to do. How you overcome it, though, is what we're going to, talk about and get inspired by. So keep going with your story.
We reached out to Kim after quite a few talks. I remember several phone calls where it was chaos for a while. Kind of asking me what my situation was. Kim had accepted me into the program in April of that year. And I moved in very soon afterwards. And I'm not going to lie, it was a rough start. Still had that part-time job going.
What does that mean, rough start?
Still had that part-time job going. I had just finished high school. Didn't really have a direction. So I kind of just went with the flow, and that was not the best idea at all. It took me getting fired from that job and a 2-month-long depression to kind of figure myself out and get moving again. And now I think I'm in a better spot.
What helped you get there?
As Kim has no doubt tried to hammer home, it was the connection with other people. 2 people in particular, Michaela and Nate, and Kim herself. They helped me a lot through that, encouraging me in any way they could, offering help and resources when they could. And it was at that point that I reached out to Keys to Success, the part of foster care that I would recommend to people because they do actually get things done. Don't rely on DCS people. But they helped me find the job that I'm at now, where I am working full-time. I am, as Kim stated, starting up college. Tomorrow, in fact. And I'm now actually having a direction.
So I'll hit you with the same question that I hit Zach with, which is, shoot me over a couple of short-term goals and a couple of long-term goals for you. Where are you set on for the next year or so? And then what's a couple of years down? Where are you hoping to be?
For the upcoming year, I'm hoping to, at the very least, start college and kind of get a feel for it. Beyond that, also moving out of the program because I am coming up at the end of my 2 years. Later on down the road, I do have plans to move to Canada.
What's waiting for you up there?
Well, honestly, a chance at a fresh start, a chance at some actual lasting change. Because let me tell you something, my mother lives just down the street. And when you have that hanging over your head, it's really difficult to make, or at least see in yourself, lasting change in any way, shape, or form. It's really a, for me at the very least, time is of the essence. The longer I know someone, the easier it is to let them in, the easier it is to talk to them, the easier it is to share what's going on inside of my head. Because that's another challenge that I have, is staying in my head way too much and not interacting with other people in any kind of way. Because again, I have that it's on me mentality that has been mentioned so much at this point.
Yeah. Well, it is on us, right? At the end of the day, it's nobody's responsibility but yourself to take care of yourself. And that's a really hard truth that eventually we all come to in some way, shape, or form. And, it's just deciding what that looks like for you. I want to thank you for coming up here and sharing your story. And if you guys would mind a little round of applause for Percy. Thank you very much, man, for joining us.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate them. It's great to get a little insight into what's happening. It was so important to me, if I was going to sit down and talk to you, Kim, that we get a little bit of information. It's like, hear it through their eyes. What's this life look like through them? What kind of support gets offered here?
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Percy mentioned Keys to Success. We've been partnered with Keys to Success, which is a part of Arizona Friends of Foster Children, since we started our program 4.5 years ago. And so that part is the job and the ability to really look at their long-term schooling and things of that nature. And then on our side, we're looking at some of those life skills and the day-to-day challenges that are going on. We're really continuing to try to innovate new ways to work on the financials, because we know financials are one of the most important pieces of them being able to go out in the world and sustain themselves. And so we're constantly looking at how we shift that to get them more deeply engaged in that space, because we are looking at credit scores. We're looking at how they build credit. It really is looking at all those pieces of life. And at the same time, it's also looking at where are we at when it comes to substance and addiction? Where are we at when it comes to our mental health and well-being? So it's looking at the overall, because if you don't have some of those, one of the things we've had a lot of conversations with our volunteer team and our staff team is we're asking sometimes for the blocks that have to have foundational blocks to be made because of the age of the young adult. So you should be going to school, you should have a job, you should be doing all those things, and failing to see that there's some blocks down here that have to take place for them to have stability up here. And so I think that's the thing that we're constantly having to evaluate with each young adult is realistically, where are they at? Why are they struggling in different areas? And then finding out ways to interact and work with them directly that are meaningful for them and not just this.
My friend Sharon calls it her turkey moment, but she was volunteering at this Title I school downtown, and she thought she was going to do this great big noble thing. And she went out and she bought 4 turkeys and she brought them to the school, and she gave them to the teachers, and she said, "Give these to whoever you want." And they looked at it and they said, "How are they going to cook them?" You forget about all the other stuff around. It's not so simple. Not everybody just needs the turkey to make Thanksgiving happen, right? And so I say that to lead us to this volunteer piece. And certainly there's a community here that could wrap their arms around you in a meaningful way that would be helpful for you. And so I really want you to talk about, before we get to this details breakdown that I've got planned for everybody, tell me a little bit about what's available. What opportunities are available for people to lend a hand here?
Yeah, I will tell you it is varying depending on what people's skills are. We have a maintenance list that is never ending, and we're constantly having to figure out how are we going to get it all done. Even right now in the season that we're in, paying people to come, like we just had somebody who was contracting with us, they were able to make more at another job, so they had to back out of working with us. So if there's people who have practical, like I can come and I can do maintenance support, that's amazing. We need people who are available to come and actually work hands-on with the young adults. And so there's all different varying things and needs list that our housing engagement director Sonia is constantly putting together that each young adult is needing, and we need more hands, because there's so much. And I always look at it and I hate timetables because it feels like it's a ticking time space of trying to get them from here to there. And we need more people that are actually willing to help us help the young adults get from here to there. Because yes, it's the young adults' responsibility, but you can't expect somebody to be able to do all of these things by themselves when they've never learned how. It's our job as a community to come alongside and help them learn how to do these things to be successful. So we need people who are actually willing to do that. We need people at community meetings that will cook. Because I'll tell you, none of the young adults want me cooking. My husband does most of the cooking in our house, but yet I'm teaching a lot of cooking, right? And it's the same thing. And we've got some amazing volunteers who are here tonight that are cooking and have stepped in. My sister is one of them. But that's the thing, is we need people who can actually bring their skills and their specialties. We need people who will engage in our community meetings in meaningful ways. And I'll tell you right now, we're trying to extend it outside of this room. Yes, we have 26 beds. And we can make an impact in the lives that are in this room. But I'm going to tell you what, we're working with the director, we're working with the court systems. We've got to make an earlier impact. And so right now we're working on curriculum. Zach was a part of helping us set up the insides of Canvas, and we're going to start creating life skills for young adults that are not yet a part of us and trying to fix those gaps earlier. So community members who want to be a part of sharing what they have to offer, they can do that in the room. They can do that and make it so that outside of our room can get support. So the possibilities are endless.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love this adage that the cost is always cheaper sooner.
Yeah. And I would just ask around the room, how many of you had a mentor in your life?
Yeah. Maybe a couple of hands went up and two so-sos.
And I think that's the thing, is we do an intake and we ask about community engagement, and that is always so low. So again, we always say, if you don't want to be involved directly with young adults that are aging out of foster care, we will help you connect with other organizations. You can be a court-appointed special advocate and advocate for kids that are currently in foster care. You can be a mentor. The earlier we can start letting them know that there are trustworthy adults in their lives, the earlier we can start working on what this community actually can stand for and stand beside them in, the more we're going to see them be able to step into 18, 19, 20, 21 with confidence and with more skills and with more trust in the community in which they live. And so again, we always say, I don't care if you volunteer with us. We would love to have you volunteer with us, but just choose to do something. Because these young adults, when you look at the stats of those aging out of foster care, 70% being pregnant by the age of 19, you look at the stats for imprisonment. We have over 70% in prison that have experienced foster care, 80% on death row. 1 in 4 are going to be homeless. Our last 10 young adults who came in our program were homeless. Like, there are real stats that should break the community's heart. And if you care about the community at large, then I will tell you that the community at large is impacted by foster care, not just by foster care. It's all around them in so many other spaces. So if you want to make an impact, this is an amazing space to start.
Well, I love that. And it leads me in perfectly to where I want to go tonight, which is to give you guys a sense of some skills that you'll be able to utilize to break the cycle and get yourself to exactly where you want to be, because it's on you at the absolute end of the day. This is your life, and this is the thing. You got to take it and grab it by the horns, you know. And I mentioned that I was a youth hockey coach, and I've been working with this analogy for many, many years. And it's this idea between the difference between good and great teams. You know, there's things that make a team really good, and then there's things that make a team really, really great. And if there's one big differentiating factor, it's that good teams only have moments of brilliance, and great teams execute the fundamentals flawlessly every time. You guys got to get the basics of life right. And here's the other difference between good and great teams. Okay, as long as you're paying attention, great teams communicate. They talk to each other. There is transparency and awareness at a whole new level, and we're going to get into that here in just a couple of moments. And then I would say the other difference between good and great teams is that on good teams, some of the people are participating. Some of the people have some buy-in. Some of the people are like, yeah, this is a good idea. We should do this. But there's still enough people on the team who are like, I'm not bought in. I don't really trust what's going on here. This doesn't sound like my thing. And they can never get great because of that. That great team has buy-in from everybody. Everybody understands what the common goal is. And I really want this to resonate with this room, right? What is the room's collective goal? What is your goal in life? Both simple and complex. What do you want to get out of this thing? I think I told you 2 weeks ago that when I was here, I started off in a blue-collar town. Everybody around me was a laborer or Vietnam vet. I didn't have anybody I was pointing to like, yeah, they're crushing it, right? I got my first radio job at 19 years old and made $13,500 a year. That's $300 a week to work my tail off and work so hard for that next job only to find out I would make just $24,000, right? You getting this? I'm in credit card debt. The whole thing in front of me is looking like, how am I going to get myself out of this thing? And then I was able to gain a little bit of clarity, and I met somebody who was just great. He was just great at everything they did. And I said, tell me what you know. Show me everything that you know. And I'm going to summarize it in that word details. And I think everybody got a piece of paper here, and I want you to follow along on this whole thing because this is really important. This is the difference maker right here, guys. This is the difference between people who get success and have it and keep it and the people who just bitch about the reasons that they couldn't get it done for themselves. This is the difference. The D in detail stands for discipline. And I'm not talking about behavioral. I'm not talking about punishing you guys. What I am talking about is the discipline to get enough rest before you work the next day, to eat the right types of food before you go and have a workout, showing up wherever you show up with an undeniable work ethic. Do you have that kind of discipline in you that no matter what is happening in your life, you're going to show up rested, fed, and a strong work ethic? Here's the other thing that falls under the discipline chain is being coachable. Now, a lot of you may have, and we experience a couple of stories, right, on this podcast where it does feel like you can't trust people, and maybe you don't want to trust people, and that's hard for you, but that's also making you less coachable. When you won't allow somebody to put their imprint on you in a meaningful way, you're losing out. Not them. You're losing out. Because as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, these people really care about you. They want the best things in the world for you here. The E in details is your environment. This is an interesting one for especially this room, I would say, right? Because you guys are in a unique position that these are your brothers and sisters right here. I mean, this is your environment. These are your people. These are the folks who are all rowing the same boat and have, I would say, pretty common goals. And I want to take it a step further. I want to say, who are the people that you're talking to outside of this room? Do these people support you? Or at every turn when you're trying to make a good decision, are they in your ear about a party, about somebody who's going out, about somebody who wants to go get high? Are they even headed in the right direction? Well, pay attention to people that aren't headed anywhere you want to be. The T in details stands for transparency. I think it's critically important that if you can, you start to learn how to articulate your thoughts. And let us know what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what's going on. And then that you also learn to lean into a skill set where you can do that without being angry or venomous or spiteful or any of those other emotions that come along with it. Because I'll tell you the truth. I held on to a lot of baggage in my life for a long time. And when it finally came out, it didn't look so sexy. Who made the choice? Who made the choice to keep it inside every day? Me. I made that choice every day. Every day I made that choice not to have that conversation, not to talk to that person, not to go down that difficult road. That was me making that choice. And we could talk a lot about why later. Transparency is critical. We've got to know what's going on in your mind because if we don't know what's happening, we can't help. That's the truth in life. That lesson will serve you in your career, your friends, your wife, your husband, your friends, everywhere you go. Be transparent with people. None of us are mind readers. At best, some of us are pretty good at picking up on your energy. So the A in details is awareness. And where transparency is about you talking to us, awareness is about you becoming keyed into what's happening around you. And this takes a little bit of thought. It does. And the other thing that sucks about this awareness piece is that there's certain people that might have to get cut out and might have to go. All in the spirit of you becoming the best version that you can be of yourself. The I in details is humongous. It may be one of the most important pieces of this puzzle, and it's the word integrity. You may try to operate your life without integrity, and you may even succeed a couple of times. You might pull the wool over somebody's eyes, pull a fast one on somebody, and not get caught. That might happen. But the moment that you can lock into integrity in this way, which is my definition, which is you're going to do the right thing, especially when it doesn't work for you, especially when it doesn't work for you. That's integrity. How can you operate every ounce of your life in that way? But when somebody comes to you and they talk to you about what you did, how you did it, all of these things, you say with the utmost of integrity, okay, yeah, that was me. And then you work on fixing it. Key into that, guys. Stop blaming other people. Take this thing for yourself. Own this inside. And different things start to happen for you. All right, we're almost wrapped. We got a couple of more. Oh, yes, my favorite. Love. For the love of the game. A desire to know more and to be the best in this game of life. Y'all need to fall in love with something. Start with yourselves. And then branch out from there. You can't heal without relationship. You can't heal without relationship. And not everybody needs to be everything. But you are at an age where you need to start building your group of people and your support system and all of those things. We talked about the environment piece earlier, right? You need to start creating an environment that works for you guys. The S on this thing is serious ownership. And it's a little bit in line with integrity. And I stole this thing actually from a former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, is this incredible dude who talks about extreme ownership. And I just put my own spin on it, serious ownership. And so here we are, right? When you take ownership of your situation, your outlook on it changes. My feeling is that when you take ownership of what's going on and around you, are less likely to tarnish the name. And every single person in this room is an elephant tied to a plastic chair. You can get up and move whenever you need to. And you should never lose sight of that. If you pay attention to the details every day of your life and you make them non-negotiable, you'll start to see incredible success in your life. These can't be done with the word if. Can't say I'm going to do all that stuff if I feel good. Who knows what mental toughness is or thinks they have a version of it? Yeah. I don't really love mental toughness because I think it's used for groups of people that maybe aren't ready for it. But you guys are old enough to understand mental toughness this way. It means doing the right thing when you don't feel like it. Before we wrap, Kim, I want to talk to you and maybe ask you one last question, which is, where do you hope this goes?
You know, as you were sitting here going through all of that, the acronym, it is exactly what we tell them all the time. And I love that you put it in an acronym for them to be able to grab hold of it. Because I look around this room and this is our future. Mm-hmm. It really is. And I think that sometimes each and every one of you discount your space in this world. But I love that you said that there's space for them, because I believe that there is a specific space for you that if you don't fill, then society will suffer because you did not step into your potential. I truly believe that. And so my hope is that you take seriously what is being given to you, because you guys are here for a reason. And I will tell you, on the Foster Arizona side, we're not stopping. We're going to build this dang building. We're going to make it so instead of 26 beds, we have 50 beds. We are in the process of developing this property. It has been one step after another. And again, those details, choosing to move forward even when things are tough. And we're going to continue to shine light because we believe that these young adults are worth it. And our hope is the community comes around us and helps us, because it's a heavy load. And we understand the significance of the work that we do, and that there are real lives that are depending on us to show up every single day. And my hope is that each and every one of them choose to show up for themselves as well, just like we're choosing to show up.
Kim, thank you so much for joining me.
We're so glad you were here tonight.
Oh, I loved it. Every time I come in here, I call Sam after and I say, I want to go back and do that some more. I love this place. So thank you for having me. And thank you guys for being a part of our live studio audience tonight. Peace and love, guys. Thank you for listening to us. All right.